Thank you. Pleasure to welcome Jeff Burchill here this morning. Jeff grew up in Sarnia and attended Northern High School. He is a retired certified financial planner, having sold the family business to two of his partners in 2021. He is using his free time now to give back to our community in various ways. He's a board member of the Sarnia Community Foundation and Athletics Southwest Track and Field Club. Jeff loves to run, at least he used to, but now he does cycling because he says it's easier on his legs. Passionate cyclist. And he's an integral part of the organising committee for the annual cycling event known as the Blue Water International Grand Fondo. Jeff and his wife Anne have been married for 34 years. They are proud parents of Claire and Colin. And Claire was recently married in the summer. So Jeff will share some experiences from completing the Snowman Trek in the Himalayas. And he's no stranger to the mountains. He has hiked in Patagonia, in Chile and Argentina, also to the base camp of Mount Everest. He's hiked in the Rockies, and very recently he hiked to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. Fortunately, he came back down again so he could be with us this morning. So please welcome Jeff Burchill. Is height okay?
As long as everybody can hear me.
Yeah. You okay?
Yeah, okay, good. I don't usually have a problem being heard. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here, and I never tire of talking about my trip to Bhutan just over a year ago. I don't have a lot of time today, and it's hard to compress 3 weeks into 15 or 20 minutes, but I'll do my best. And I will stay around later for questions if you want to discuss anything. For those of you that did see the film, thank you. I just feel that's a better way for you to sort of appreciate what I experienced. I think Kendra just did an incredibly beautiful job. And for those of you that haven't yet seen it, I'm sure others in the room would recommend it to watch on YouTube. It's free to watch at your convenience. There was a physical aspect to it. Obviously, I do like to challenge myself physically, as Alan sort of alluded to, and this was certainly a physical challenge. Probably the toughest thing I ever did. But then there was the cultural experience too was really the highlight for me, and I would say the same thing when I went to Everest Base Camp. The highlight of that was the cultural experience, because you're going through, in both cases, we were going through villages and we interacted with the people that lived there and observed just a little bit of their way of life and so on. In Bhutan, we started with a few days in the more populated areas. They do have their largest capital city of Thimphu is about 100,000 people. Surprisingly, there is no traffic lights in the city of 100,000 people. The traffic, there's 4-lane roads, there's traffic, and there's only intersections or roundabouts, and everybody seems to get along. They seem to take their turn. They seem to give other people their turn. So we did spend a couple of days in the more populated areas. We visited a number of temples, and you'll see a photograph there of probably the most spectacular temple, which is called the Tiger's Nest. And it took us, it's literally just clawing on the edge of a cliff. And how it was built hundreds of years ago is beyond my imagination. That somebody would even think to try to build something there, let alone do it, and transport the materials. That was a 5-hour round trip hike to get up there and back down. And we weren't carrying giant boulders or stones for construction. Every temple that we visited, is that going to work, Dick? Maybe you just go to the next one for me.
Try it now.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so this is another temple that was built in the 1600s, like almost 400 years ago. And it's obviously been maintained and refurbished over the years, but it's just spectacular. And every temple that we went into, you remove your footwear and you don't take pictures. So I don't have any photographs from inside other than in my mind. Inside are just breathtaking. The artistry and the beauty inside is incredible, but they're very, very solemn places. And we were always reminded, if you have your shoes off, you don't take pictures. That was the clue. Right? So this was, again, in the more populated area. This was the first few days that we were sort of getting over our jet lag, because it's literally halfway around the world. And we weren't at high altitude here. We were higher, certainly higher altitude than we live in Sarnia. So, you know, there was a time to just get to know each other. We had a group of about 16 or 17. Only 3 of us were Canadian, the 2 women that made the film and myself. The rest were mostly Americans. There was a Brit that you saw in the film. And there's one tall guy that if you saw the film, he struggles with English a bit. And he's from Estonia. And he ended up being my tent mate. And now I have a friend in Estonia, which I never thought I would have. So that was really a bonus as well. So these are just some photos from some of the temples that we were at. These are some of our guides. So I'll talk about, so if you watch the film, like the idea is they don't measure success by GDP like we do in the West, gross domestic product. They have a metric called gross national happiness, GNH. And that was sort of the goal of our trip, was to discover more about this and learn, like, is this just marketing, or is there really something to this? And there's 4 parts to that. They're concerned about environmental conservation. They're very concerned about preserving their culture. They are focused on good governance, and they're focused on sustainable development, not developing just for the sake of growing, but sustainable development. These are 3 of our guides here who were just wonderful and looked after us very, very well. You can see when I travel to other countries, good tip for any of you here, if you phone your MP's office, in this case Marilyn Gladu, and tell them you're going to another country, they'll give you a little pouch of Canadian lapel pins. So that's a fun way for me to travel. I take pins with me and I pass them out. So it was kind of great because our group had 14 Americans in the group, but our guides were all wearing Canadian pins, so I felt good about that. But I want to show this photo because you'll see that they're in very traditional dress, and it's actually a law in Bhutan that men and women wear traditional dress when they're working, if they're in school, etc. Now, when these guys were on the trail with us, they were able to wear normal hiking gear. But when we were in the city, when they were taking us on tours of temples and other locales, every day they were in their traditional dress. So for men, that dress is called a go, G-H-O, and for women it's called a kira. And it's, you know, it's just, you take the idea for us here, where you would see children at school in a school uniform, and then take that and expand it across like the whole population. It's quite. I mean, they're still able to differentiate themselves with different material, but the style of the dress is all the same.
How old would they be?
These guys would all be. The guy on the right is probably the youngest. He's only been a guide for a couple of years. So guiding is a university or a college course. Like, they have to go to school to become educated in their. I mean, incredibly knowledgeable about their history, their religion, their flora and fauna. The guy in the middle was like unbelievable with plants and animals. Anyway, it would probably be between 20. I mean, the guy in the middle is maybe the oldest, and he's probably early 30s. The other two guys would be in their 20s. But it's a way for, they have to become educated. Obviously, their English was pretty good, way better than my Bhutanese. But it's not just, there's more to it than just, grabbing some hiking poles and going on a trek. But I guess I want to talk just a little bit. That's one of the focuses about their culture is the dress. The first couple of days that we were there, we got to go to a festival in Laya. So Laya is at 4,000 meters, which is about 13,000 feet above sea level. So that first couple of days getting up to there was certainly very physical. It was also partly about our bodies getting adjusted to that thinner air and our higher altitude. We spent 2 nights there, which helped us adapt to the elevation. But this festival was a really, really big deal. And again, you can see that the women there are wearing their traditional dress. The men were competing in various, men and women were competing in different competitions, and you can see they're wearing their traditional dress as well. But this is partly about preserving their culture. You can, the real highlight, so you'll see a bunch of tents in the background here, and you'll see there's one tent there with special bunting on it. And the people were so thrilled because the king came and spent the day with them that day. And so that was the king's tent with the bunting on it. And the king is very, very much beloved from everybody that we came across there. He seems to provide, going back to one of the 4 pillars of GNH, is good governance. I think it was his father, the 4th king, basically he didn't abdicate. I mean, he's still the king, but he introduced democracy. And the people didn't want democracy. The people said, no, you just look after us. And he said, no, I think this is better for you if we have a democracy. So we spent 2 days at the festival. This was a tug of war where they invited tourists to have a tug of war with the locals. And the tourists started out really good, but then because of the thin air and because they're adapted to the thin air, everybody ran out of steam, and the locals won. But it was just a really joyous day. In the film, you see the king briefly. So Kendra and Samantha had to get a film permit first of all before they went. It was probably almost a year in advance they had to get some of these things locked down. And when the film was done, Kendra had to send it to them for approval. And the big stumbling block was, like, is it okay to film the king? Because, like, that's just not done. And they were so pleased with the film that they approved it for release on YouTube. And actually, a few weeks ago, it was shown on Bhutan's version of the CBC. On their national television station, they showed the film a few weeks ago, which was just unbelievable. If you read through the comments on YouTube, there's over 140 comments, I think, on YouTube. And a lot of those people who are commenting are people who either live in Bhutan or who are Bhutanese who have immigrated to other countries. There's a large population of Bhutanese in Australia. And if you read through the comments, they just are they rave about the film, and they rave about what a beautiful job Kendra and Sam did at showing their country to the rest of the world. There's very, very little on the internet about Bhutan. It's a very mysterious place. Not a lot of people have visited there. We were very, very lucky to go and to spend the time that we did. I got the one and only chance probably I'll ever have to ride a yak. So there's the king. So believe it or not, the king has an Instagram page, and this was on his Instagram page, and I'm actually right there. I wasn't really in the photo, but I was kind of in the background. One of our guides in the film, you'll see Kinley, who is sort of, who was really an integral part. He did all the translation for Kendra in the film. And for him to meet the king was the highlight of his life. And he actually knew the photographer, so he got the photographer to take a photo, and he has the photo, and he's got it blown up on his wall at home. Like, for him to meet the king was just the highlight of his life. So then after a couple of days at the festival, then we spent we really were out in the boonies. We were off the grid. I had a phone with me, but it was really just my camera. My phone was on airplane mode for over 2 weeks. We were occasionally, like, our guides had a satellite phone. I mean, if there was a problem, we could get messages out, and if there was problems, we could get messages in. But we were really off the grid, which was extraordinarily peaceful. And almost every day we hiked. We had a couple of rest days. Your body is working hard. And so we had a couple of rest days built in, which were fun. In the film, you'll see one day we're doing our laundry, and that was just a nice day to relax. Another cultural highlight was so I'm just flipping through some. I mean, the scenery was just spectacular. The nighttime, someone earlier talked about, I think it was in David's poem, he mentioned about seeing the stars. And if you want to talk about seeing stars, when you're in the middle of the Himalayas and there is no light pollution around, it was just breathtaking. So if you were up in the night to go to the toilet or what have you, you could literally see the Milky Way. I've never seen anything like it. It was just spectacular. We were really blessed with great weather. One of the reasons that the Snowman Trek is so difficult and why many people don't complete it is that you're dealing with the elements. And we were just so fortunate that we didn't have difficult weather. We almost, in the film and in the photos, you'll see it's sunny almost every day. We had snow on one day, which kind of made it special too. So we're above the clouds here. You can see quite clearly. So down below in the communities, it would have been a cloudy day, but for us, it was a sunny day. There's a couple of our group. So yeah, every night we had a staff of 24 who. So that would be our guides, our cooks, and the horsemen. You'll see in the film that everything is moved by horses. The horses were incredibly strong and fit. And so the guides would race ahead, and they would have our tents set up by the time we got to camp. Each morning we would get up, pack up our gear, and get ready to go for the day. And eventually they would pass us on the trail. They're just so much fitter and so much faster that they would pass us. They would serve our food on the trail. The food was incredible. So there's the whole team of support workers. This was on our first rest day. I guess I want to just talk a little bit about, at our first rest day, this is in a community called Lunana, and that was a real highlight too. We visited a local school, and it was graduation day. The timing was just incredible. Graduation day for them was a big deal, as it is here too. But education is fairly new to the Bhutanese. So a lot of these children are the first literate people in their family. Their parents aren't literate, or their grandparents certainly were never literate. Again, it sort of goes back to the fourth and the fifth king who have focused more on education for the benefit of their people. So going to the school was a real highlight. Oh, that's just showing some of the food. The food we were incredibly well fed on this. So here we are at the school, and we knew we were going there, so we all took school supplies and pencil crayons and books and that kind of thing to give to them, which was well received. So that was a real highlight. Also in that community, we spent time, we got invited into somebody's house. So imagine you're in your backyard just hanging out with your family, and a group of 16 people walk by, and you just invite them all into your house. Like, that's basically what happened. It was incredible. They were so thrilled that we were there. And of course, when you bring someone into your house, you want to give them maybe food and drink, right? So they broke out their version of moonshine, which is called Ara, and we all sipped a little of this very potent elixir, and yak cheese. Yak cheese and moonshine is basically what we have. We all sat on the floor. As you can see, they had mats out for everybody. The place was spotless. Everything's wood, and the place was spotless. And of course there's a little stove in the middle there for heat. And they were just so thrilled that we were there, that we would come all this way to visit them. I probably got to wrap up here shortly. Do I, Alan? Am I doing okay? Or
Couple of minutes.
okay. They were just, in the film, one of our friends talks about, it's just so easy for us to see that they have an attitude of what he calls non-striving, that enough is enough. And that's so foreign to us, to me, in the civilization I've grown up with, that we very much have an attitude of you've got to have more, you've got to have a bigger house and a flashier car and all those kinds of things. I thought a lot about something I learned in school many years ago, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how our hierarchy of needs are do we have our physiological needs looked after? Food, water, shelter. They have that. Do we have safety and security? They feel like they have that. Again, they revere their king and their government, which is also a very foreign concept to us here. Didn't hear people complaining about putting bump outs on the street to calm traffic or something like outrageous, as an example. As it relates to safety and security too, just a little sidebar, like as Alan said, they're wedged between, if you look on a map, between these two behemoths of China and India. And they're just this little tiny country. Nepal is next door. And India is basically their big brother. They actually don't have diplomatic relations with any of the permanent UN members. So they don't have diplomatic relations with the US, England, France, Russia, China. So India is their big brother. And India wants to protect them because they don't want China encroaching any closer either. In terms of, they provide a lot of hydroelectric power to India, also for themselves. So that gets back to sustainable development. Hydroelectric power is a way of developing sustainably. But getting back to that safety and security, I feel like they rely on their own peaceful lifestyle, but they also rely on India as their big brother. And the third part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is love and belonging. And there's very much, certainly in the villages where we were, in the outlying areas, it's very much living in an extended family. So 3 or 4 generations might live together. The house that we were in, there was a 4-year-old child. There was an older child who had been sent away to school because schools aren't everywhere. And then there was husband and wife, and then there was an elderly woman who was the mother of either the man or the woman. So they look after each other. Obviously, the neighbors look after each other. So that was kind of how I related to it in trying to understand how they are just very content. I guess the last thing I want to talk about, and Alan has challenged me on this in the past, and other people have asked me about this, is how do you bring that home? And it is difficult to bring home, because as much as I might try to implement some of the values and traditions and ways of life that I saw exhibited there, everyone around me is not thinking the same way. And so I still get dropped into our North American culture. And in the film, you'll see a woman who's from Seattle, Sarah, is in tears about it. And she's kind of angry about it. She says, like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to be angry because I'm not going to be able to feel what I'm feeling out here in the mountains. And then she says, but I just need to remember that love is the way and that love will overcome. And I don't think I could say it any better. I could talk about this for hours, and I'm happy to stick around afterwards and talk some more if you have questions or comments. But I hope you enjoyed my discussion, and if you haven't seen the film, I've watched the film 7 times now, and I cry every single time. So thank you so much, and happy to chat with you afterwards.
Well, thanks so much, Jeff. What an incredible experience. I feel like we all should go to Bhutan and